بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is another episode on spiritual wayfaring or sayr and suluk. I think at this stage I need to revisit some of the concepts and themes that we touched upon in the past, and in case people have forgotten about them, and then we get into the theme of our for today. Number one on the list of concepts that we presented was to talk about the fact that spiritual journey requires exertion, effort, and struggle. This is why some of the ahadith that we have, it calls it al-jihad al-akbar, the greater jihad. The stronger our attachment to nafs al-ammara and to the material life and desire and so on, naturally it is the harder to be able to move away from that shackle to start with. And it doesn't mean that we cannot do it, but it requires persistence. And that's why all scholars of Irfan, they talk about never to give up hope and keep at it again and again. Persistence is necessary. Also, another theme that we discussed was the beginning of the journey of sayr and suluk starts with tawbah. Without tawbah and repentance, proper repentance, in which one becomes regretful of the past and determined not to make the same mistakes and start the journey, life afresh, is the most important start to this journey. Without it, all scholars of practical Irfan, they talk about it, that without proper tawbah, its journey or sayr and suluk is not possible. I also, in the last session that we had, pointed out that while we struggle to eliminate some of the negative characters and enlighten ourselves with the positive characters, there are certain things that we can do to enhance our position, strengthen it, as well as to reduce the effect of shaitan. Salat al-Layl, dhikr, doing prayers at early time of fadila, etc., etc. We can go back to the previous lectures or discussion, we can find out. One of the most important factors in the sayr and suluk and this journey that scholars point as essential and really fundamental to this journey is the salat itself. عن الصادق عليه الصلاة والسلام والله إنه ليأتي على الرجل 50 سنة وما قبل الله منه صلاة واحدة فأي شيء أشد من هذا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is a great tragedy for one to reach the age of 50 and not to have a single prayer accepted. A single prayer accepted. This must be considered as the greatest tragedy in somebody's life. Rumi takes this theme from the hadith and talks about the effect metaphorically speaking, how shaitan is influencing us and reducing our attention to the prayer and focusing on the prayer in a in a in a set of poem. And then one of the line of poem, it says گر نموشی دوست در انبان ماست خرمن اعمال 40 ساله کجاست. If there is no, well, he says mice, but if there is no hole in the bag of a'mal, then what happened to the 40 years of amal that we did, but they are not counted? It's destroyed. So unfortunately, right from early stages of our life, whether we are when we were children or when we have to deal with our children, when we focus on presenting the outward characteristics of prayer, rather than tell our children that, look, it's not just the outward. As long as our children stand and offer prayer, then we are happy with it, without having to explain to them that, look, the prayer that you're offering has to have the spirit of it. If that spirit is missing, then the prayer is not going to be acceptable. And in a spiritual condition of the prayer, we are not teaching our children at all, which is the hudur al-qalb, and to be able to be present and focus. For each prayer, there are two conditions, broad condition. Number one, what we call shurut al-qabul. These are conditions for the prayer to be acceptable, which means from a religious point of view, you offer them under these conditions and you don't need to repeat them. And these conditions are normally listed in Risala Amaliyah of grand scholars, or each grand scholars. You have your place of worship has not to be ghasb. Your wudu has to be done in a particular manner. You have to face Qibla. You have to say Allahu Akbar. And all of these actions, which are all the outward factors that we need to adhere to in the prayer. These are shurut al-qabul. Without them, there is no prayer, and hence you have to repeat them again. And there is also shurut al-kamal. For these are the conditions needed for perfection of the prayer, and without them, this prayer that we offer is not going to be accepted on the day of judgment. I know it is hard. All scholars of Irfan, they talk about that it is hard to begin with because you are not trained for it. But by persistent and really working hard, it is possible to make even partially, if not totally absent-minded, but at least part of it to be present. And this is what we have. You are present, but you are absent. You are present in a sense that you are standing up in front of Qibla and you go through the motion without even blinking. Marhum Mutari rahmatullah alayhi in one of the lectures said that because of repetition, it becomes habitual, that we can go through it perfectly, the outward conditions to be recited in the manner which is acceptable, but not being even present for a single second during the prayer. From the moment that we say Allahu Akbar until the moment that we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't know whether you have had instances or phases in your life in which you sit behind the car and your mind is somewhere else, and you reach your destination and you wonder, how did I make it here without even paying attention? You don't remember at all how you, which way you went, how you drove, etc., etc. This to be present is significant and essential, central. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم كم من قائم يكون حظه من صلاته التعب والنصب. significant number of those who pray do not benefit from their prayer beyond fatigue and exhaustion. And we have similar kind of theme during the khutbah of Sha'baniyah regarding fasting. A significant number of people that they do fast, they don't benefit from fasting spiritually beyond the abstention from food and drink. That's it. وَإِنَّ مِنَ الصَّلَاةِ, these prayers that are offered, sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala تقبل نصفها, half of it, or one third, or 1/4, or 1/5, up to 1/10, which is 1/10. And if goes beyond 1/10, that the small, minute amount, it will be wrapped as a dirty cloth and stricken on the face of the person that offers the prayer, and is told like a dirty rag, and is told only the part that your heart was present is acceptable. So حضور القلب and being present, being conscious during the prayer is extremely central and essential. Scholars would spend time preparing themselves. If we listen, we read the life of Imam Zain al-Abidin or other Imam, how they prepared themselves to offer the prayer. And even ordinary scholars, they prepared themselves, cleared their mind of everything else, tried to do as much as possible for the prayer to be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are 2 verses in the Holy Quran that talks about this, the disconnect between offering prayer but not being present, and those people who offer prayer and present. Number 1 in Surah Al-Ma'un, verse number 5, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Wail means wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and punishment for those who offer prayer but they are not present. They start the prayer, Allahu Akbar, they go through all the ritual, but they are not there. The mind is not there. The heart is not there. Marhum Imam has 2 books on Salat, and other scholars have Salat, books on Salat that they took. Marhum Sayyid Abdul Hussein Dasghaib has a book on prayer as well, how to remove some of these distractions and offer prayer, which is gradually, as one struggles, becomes normal for one to offer prayer, but being present. So wail, punishment and wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those who offer prayer but they are not present within the prayer, they can't focus. In Surah Al-Mu'minun, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. This is the other end of the continuum where there are the mu'minun, the believers are those that when they stand for prayer with total khushu' and humility, and they offer prayer which is acceptable. In Khutbah al-Muttaqeen, that Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam alayhi responds to Humam's question about the characteristics of Muttaqeen. Look how much Imam spends time on the concept of prayer, and they offer prayer. It is very critical. So what should we do to focus? This is one of the major themes that you have to we go through in books of written about Salat. The 2 books that Marhum Imam had written about Salat, and it's translated in Farsi, I believe. It's available online, and there are other books in Arabic. So, number 1, being mindful that so long as the only thing that we think about is material glamour of this world, it is very hard to be mindful of Allah's presence. heart cannot have two attachment. You either spend attachment on being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as long as nafs al-ammara is controlling the heart and there is a clear attachment to the glamour and the worldly belonging, the idea that you can use the prayer as a mean or a conduit to get closer to Allah, it's not going to happen. That's number one. And let me make this point clear, that we are not infallibles, and as fallibles, gradually we need to follow and slowly, because there is a hadith Qudsi, man taqarraba ilayya shibran taqarrabtu ilayhi dhira'a. If you get closer or attempt to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shibr, which means close to a foot, or as a metaphorical use for a short distance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would come closer to you and work with you for the betterment of this by even more than the distance that you have gone. Number two, in our mindset, prayer must be the most important thing we do. If prayer is just an engagement like any other, the significance of it is lost. So when the time of prayer comes, we really need to get ready for doing the most important things in our daily life, which is the prayer. Because in essence, prayer is facing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a line of communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a hadith, ما من صلاة تحضر وقتها أو تحضر وقتها إلا ونادى ملك بين الناس أيها الناس قوموا إلى نيرانكم التي أوقدتموها على ظهوركم فاطفئوها بصلاتكم. Every time of prayer that comes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a malaika or an angel that says, "O people, stand up and somehow put all the fires of sinfulness that you have put on your shoulder by offering prayer. قوموا إلى نيرانكم التي أوقدتموها." The fires that you have started, which means an indirect way of saying that the sinfulness. على ظهوركم فاطفئوها. You put the fires off. You remove that forgetfulness and sinfulness by offering prayer. Prayer, in essence, is a combination of dua, tawassul, khushu', humility, and asking Allah for support. It's a mixture of everything from the beginning to the end. This is why it's so critical. As-salatu mi'rajul mu'min. That salat is the spiritual elevation in which the soul of the believer is supposed to ascend, can only happen during when we pay attention and our heart is present. I must repeat, this requires huge amount of work, and to the point that scholars, the grand scholars, even 1 minute, one single minute of distraction, they would repeat the prayer. But for us that we have spent all our lives, going back to the early hadith from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah salam alayhi, 50 years, 60 years of life, and we don't have even a single prayer to offer on the day of judgment to say that we have in our life. And this is the greatest tragedy in our life. The next step is to clear one's thought of distraction. How do we do that? When the time of prayer comes, we sit, not immediately say Allahu Akbar without preparation. We sit and recite Quran, we recite dua, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. We are in do nawafil, and say adhan and iqama, all of these gradually shifting as a strategy towards removing our mind of anything that is distracted. Physical distraction is also or are also critical that we have to remove around us. That's why there's so much stress about offering the prayers in jama'ah or at the mosque, because the environment is conducive to at least less distraction and more reminders about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are doing prayer at home, try to select a particular corner of the house or a room that there is less distraction around you. Don't pray when in front of a TV or a radio or anything that makes a sound that could distract attention when the kids are around or anything else. So you remove yourself from all these distractions and go to this corner of the house that you have designated for the prayer and sit there for a while by reciting Quran, offering prayer, nawafil and so on, until you are ready mentally, gradually to go into the prayer itself. Another issue which is critical is Salat awwal al-waqt. Tell everything else that I have prayer rather than tell the prayer that I have something else. Drop everything that you have when the time of fadilah of the prayer comes. Prepare yourself and structure your time management. Structure your time that you drop everything and you move for prayer. Rather than let me finish this work, before you know it, 2 hours, 3 hours time has gone and you haven't done your prayer. Salat awwal al-waqt is very critical. And I remember in reading life of Marhum Ayatollah Qadi, he would say two things that I'm surprised somebody is searching for spiritual wayfaring or sayr and suluk, and they don't do Salat al-Layl and they don't do Salat awwal al-waqt. These two are critical. So when the time of prayer comes, you have to be ready to leave everything else in your quiet corner, sitting down and preparing mentally and spiritually towards the prayer. Constantly being on wudu and tahara. Every time the wudu or tahara is broken down, immediately you go for wudu and tahara, and you recite the du'as that we have regarding when you wash your face, when you wash your hands, when you do your head, masah of feet, and generally speaking, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you that privilege of this tahara and wudu that you have to move you towards a proper prayer. If you try as much as possible to distract, to remove the distraction, and it is not possible somehow, sometimes thoughts take over and you cannot remove it, give yourself a little bit of break and come back again. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَى. When your mind is distracted and thinking of material life, try as much as possible. If you don't succeed, just give yourself a little bit of break. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, particularly when you do adhan and iqamah, oh Lord, help me out. Stop shaitan affecting my prayer. So all of these are necessary conditions. We will continue inshallah, necessary conditions for the prayer. But prayer are critical in this regard. Not only Salat al-Layl, but generally being present during our prayers, the obligatory prayers. And it is not something that it is done easily, similar to fasting. It's not done unless one trains oneself. With fasting, for example, month of Rajab is coming soon. Another, probably this is the third or fourth of Jamadi al-Thani. Another 3 weeks or so, month of Rajab comes. Month of Rajab, Sha'ban are 2 months of recommendation to get into the habit of proper fasting and moving towards the month of Ramadan. So the same manner that one has to strategize is as far as when it comes to the prayer, how to organize the time, what should we do, how to remove this attachment, trying to be conscious of our present during the prayer, asking Allah for support, and inshallah Allah will help. But with a hadith that says the prayer could be accepted half of it, a third of it, a fourth of it, 1/5 or 1/10, indicates how difficult it is for us at least to focus and be able to be present during the entire period of the prayer, whatever salat that we offer. Inshallah, we continue with this discussion in the next session. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.